What's up, everybody? Welcome back. John Levesque here, and today I am in my own little BBC studio again. Very excited to change up the format. I am bringing you an awesome video today. I'm bringing on a special guest who's going to do a highly requested video. I have joined the Microsoft Educators group, and I asked them, what was something you need from Power Automate? If you could automate a task in your life and just get it out of your hair, what would it be? And so many of them responded that they wish they could have quizzes that graded themselves. They didn't have to deal with grading. And so I went and I put the call out to the community and I said, hey, who wants to take this on? And my buddy, Matt Collins-Jones, stepped up and said, I will take that on, John. What's up, Matt? How you doing, man?
I'm good. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. It hasn't been too rainy here lately. There's snow in the mountains. I'm really thinking about skiing. I don't know with the whole COVID situation or what, but I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. Yeah. How are you?
I'm good. Different parts of the UK are getting snow. So far, no snow here for the time being. So I can't go skiing, or sledding, but I'd love to. I'd love to just get out of the house and do something right now.
Yeah, I know. I don't know if you know, but I've been in lockdown. I'm diabetic, and so for me, it's a very serious thing. So I'm going on month 10, man. And as an extrovert, I'm just like ready to pop.
So crazy.
Yeah. Okay, well, back to the business at hand. MCJ is here to show us how to create a Microsoft form quiz and an answer sheet, and how to have those things match up against each other using Power Automate and some new technology, Dataverse and Teams. So before we jump in, Matt's gonna go ahead and share his screen. Matt, take a second, introduce yourself, let everybody know who you are, what you do, and make sure and mention your awesome YouTube channel. If he doesn't, I'm gonna mention it now. He has an awesome YouTube channel with hundreds of Power Automate videos. I'm pretty sure he's made more Power Automate videos than anyone, even me. All right, Matt, go ahead. Take it away, man. Introduce yourself and let people know what you do.
Okay, thanks, John. I am Matt Collins-Jones. I am a solution architect for D365 and the Power Platform. I work for a company called TSG in the UK. So I'm based in the UK in a place called Manchester, which is in the north of the UK. I've got 10 plus years working with Dynamics CRM, as it used to be called. I've worked both on-premise and online, so kind of all the platforms. I've passed 18 exams across the Dynamics and Power Platform space. Big exam taker me. I do love to do a lot of exams. I'm also the UK Manchester committee member here. So we run UGs in the UK to educate and to help end users and do some awesome things with people. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer, and I was lucky enough to be awarded a Microsoft MVP in November last year. And I'm also a cat dad to my two cats there, Misa on the left and Ted on the right.
Adorable.
Thanks. As John mentioned, I do have a YouTube channel. I took a personal challenge last year to commit to make loads of videos, mainly for my own learning. But then I decided to learn out loud and build an entire video empire of Power Automate videos. So if you go to my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Matt Collins-Jones, you will find 300 plus videos covering loads of things in Power Automate. So from OneDrive to Excel to Planner to To-Do to Dataverse that we're going to look at today, basically everything and everything in between. So yeah, I do really love making videos, and I appreciate this opportunity, John, to come here and make a video with you.
Oh man, it's so long overdue. I should have had you on ages ago. I am very thrilled to have you here today, my friend. And see what I said, guys? Like, I thought I was doing a lot, making a video every week. MCJ made a video every day for a year. It's crazy. It's crazy. Go check the description. As soon as you're done with this video, go get in the description, go to his YouTube channel and subscribe to it so that you don't miss any of that awesomeness. It's a library of Power Automate knowledge. Okay. All right, MCJ, on with the show.
Okay, so today we're going to be talking about this common problem that John found. So we're going to use Microsoft Forms, we're going to use some Power Automate, and we're going to use some Dataverse as well. So as I kind of said, I'm a Dynamics guy, so Dataverse is kind of the thing that I'm used to. So let's take a look at it. So one of the biggest problems that you have with Microsoft Forms is a great platform, and it does have the ability to do quizzes. But you have to go in, you have to put in the quiz stuff, you have to put in the answers, you then have to wait for people to respond. Once they've responded, you then have to go in and you have to download the answers and you have to like look at everything, and they're very individualized. So it's per quiz is the way you do things. So I always try to look at a way to get those scores and automatically give them to people. We are in this time of remote learning. We're of this time of trying to do things remotely and teach us how to adapt. So I thought, what's the easiest way we can do this? So I'm going to show you a method today to automatically store things. I'm going to go through Microsoft Forms. We're going to go through some Power Automate, and we're going to go through some model-driven apps with Dataverse to try and get you an idea for it. But the best thing about the solution is that it's compatible with anything. So if you like what I've done here, you can use Microsoft Lists for it. You can use Excel or SharePoint, or whatever you've got lying around. We can build this for the platform that you have. So let's go from the start. So I've created a quiz here. Now this is just a Microsoft form. It's not actually a quiz form, but you can do it with a quiz form. It really doesn't matter. And we've just got some questions in here. So we've got full name. We've got who has the bigger YouTube channel, John Levesque, Matt Collins-Jones, or Daniel Laskowitz. I think it's John Levesque there. Who has a higher game score? I think maybe me on that one.
You definitely by leaps and bounds and miles.
Yeah, well, I had to get something in there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we've got what is 13 times 13? My maths isn't very good, but we'll find that out. Here we've got a multi-select option set. So we've got which of these numbers are even. So we've got a list here. And we've also got what is the capital of England. So you'll notice that we're going through several different types of questions here. We've got choice questions, we've got text field questions, and we've got multi-select questions. So we're going to cover how to handle each one of these. Little secret, it's all pretty easy.
I love it.
So I built my quiz here, and again, you can use a form or you can use a quiz. It doesn't matter because what we're going to do is, as you said, we're going to build that answer sheet that we're going to store things against. So I've created a few tables inside of Dataverse. So if you're not familiar with this is what's called a model-driven app. It is primarily used for sort of dynamics, but with the whole Power Platform thing, you can build it on other data as well. So this is just a generic Dataverse instance, and we've built two record types to just contain a bit of data. So we've got quiz answers, and this is the first thing that we're going to go through. So if we open up the record quiz answers, and we look at the one that says MCJ Big Quiz of the Year, we can see that I've pre-populated in some information here. So I've got the name of the quiz, and I've got the answer to each question in here. And these are just text fields. There's nothing fancy about them. They're just text fields. And it's really as simple as when you build a new quiz and you want to store it, you just press the new button. You fill in a name, and I use this as like a name to distinguish what quiz is what. So we can say quiz 3, and then you can just go in and you can put all your answers in here as you like. The flow is going to pre-mark these and then generate some data. So the first thing we have to do is we have to generate that answer sheet. So you can see I've got this answer sheet here for my quiz. These are the answers to the 5 questions that we've got, which correspond to the 5 questions in the quiz. Below it, we also have some quiz responses. So the quiz responses is when someone submits the quiz response. So when they've filled out the quiz, we need to store that data so we can then go and mark it as well. So I've got some sample data in my system. We've got all these quiz responses from these different people. We've got Fred Flintstone here. We can see he scored a 3 in the MCJ Big Quiz of the Year, because I've already marked this, and we can see his answers in here. Nice. But how do we get that data from Microsoft Forms into Dataverse? And the answer is Power Automate. It's always Power Automate, isn't it?
I mean, most of my problems get answered with Power Automate.
Absolutely. It just, you know, it just handles all life's problems. So
It does.
that's the hope anyway.
I mean, we got Fred Flintstone even using it. Come on.
Yeah, how hard can it be? So
I know, right?
Yeah. So let's take a look at the flow to get the data from the form into the quiz, into Dataverse. So this is the flow. Quick fact about myself. Using forms and flow is actually the first flow I ever built. I was asked by a customer about getting some data from a form into Dynamics, and this was the first flow I ever built. So it's kind of nice to come back to it a little bit.
I love it.
So this is the only part of the solution where you need to build this for each quiz. Now, the reason being is that you need to link your Microsoft form to the fields that you are creating, the fields that you want to populate in Dataverse. So the trigger for this is when a new response is submitted. This is a Microsoft Forms trigger, and you can select from a list of all of your different forms that you have in your system. So if you've created quiz for week 1, quiz for week 2, quiz for week 3, because you're trying to build them up, throughout the school year or throughout the year, you can build them all up, and then you can just select which one you want to trigger, and then get those details in.
Nice.
The next step is the get response details. Now, this was actually when I built my first flow, the thing that I struggled with, because I didn't understand why when I triggered something, I didn't get all the data. And the reason is that this triggers the flow to start. But if we want to get that data, what we need to do is we need to then go and look at that submission and get that data back. So that's where this comes in.
Well,
so this is
in all fairness, I want to say that step is required, right? You have to have that trigger and that action. And so I've told the team for years that when someone chooses that trigger, Flow should automatically drop that step in second so that a user doesn't even have to think about that. So I think that's definitely a good call out. Whenever you're working with forms, you have to have that trigger and that action. Otherwise, you'll be missing all the data. I have given this feedback to the team. I think it's just such a low priority item in the face of all the other things. It's never kind of gotten there. But I would say that's no fault of your own. That's probably more on the team.
Yeah. So, and this actually leads us onto the reason why this video is required in the first place, which is that in this get response details, one thing that it doesn't do, even if you've set it up as a quiz in Microsoft Forms, is it does not give you the score back. And that's the problem. People want to know the score. People want to know what people wrote to the answers so they can help improve where the students might be struggling a little bit, and this doesn't do that at the moment. So what we're doing is we're moving this data into Dataverse so that we can then mark that data, store that data, and generate those scores. So that's why we're doing it this way.
Cool. I like it.
So we use this get response details, and that's going to get those response details from the form. And then all we do is create a new record. So we specify the table that we want. So the table name is quiz responses, as we kind of saw in my in the Dataverse demo. We're going to populate full name against the full name. So as we click into here and we choose the dynamic content, we get a list of all the answers and all the questions, and then these are the answers that people will be filling in that form. So name, full name, that kind of makes sense. But then we have these generic ones, say question 1, question 2, question 3, question 4, question 5. So as long as you use the same questions, so like we have who is the bigger YouTube channel? That was question number 1. Who is the higher game score? As long as you relate that to the answer sheet, then it's all going to be good, because these are going to line up, if that makes sense.
Totally. Yeah.
So we're populating these in, and you'll notice number 4 is slightly different. Now, I've done this on purpose to kind of show you. So each one of these, we're just sort of saying we want to get this content, we want to put it in this box. including number 13, which is the number one as well. But number 4 is slightly different, because if you remember, number 4 is our question about the what is an even number.
With multi-select.
Yeah. Now, in this instance, what I've done is I've used some nested replaces. Now, the reason I've done this is so that we can remove the arrayness. Is that a word? Arrayness?
It is now.
It is now.
Yeah.
We're going to remove the array parts of it. So we're going to take away the punctuation marks. We're going to take away the brackets and things like that. And then when we compare the details to what goes in the system, we can actually see what it does, and we can see it take away these things, so that when we compare it, you don't have to specify, okay, open bracket, quotation mark around each one of the numbers, etc., or each one of the responses if it's text. We can take all that away using this formula. So this is something that you can use, and all it does is just replaces these different things with essentially no space. So it's remove the punctuation, remove the bracket, remove the other bracket, and it's just a nested if. So I've actually uploaded this entire solution to my GitHub. I'll also make it available somewhere that John can put as well. And if people want to rip apart this solution and get these flows and take a look at them, they absolutely can do themselves.
Love that. That's awesome. I'll have the link in the description. If MCJ sends me that, I'll make sure to put that in the description so you guys can just go and start playing with that right away.
Yeah. So cool. So this was kind of the only tricky part of the whole flow, was just replacing this so it's a bit more user friendly for someone. The last question is, what is the capital of England, which we've mapped in there. And then the last thing we did is we actually map a field, or map a lookup, essentially. So a lookup is the way that we can see that response and then relate that to that answer sheet, so that we know that that response relates to that quiz and that answer sheet. So this is the way lookups are formatted in Dataverse. It's the entity set name and then in brackets the GUID. So I've just hard coded that in. There are other ways to do this, but this is just for the demo purpose. And we can get that out, and that just relates those responses to that answer sheet. So if we go back to our answers for a second and just show you, so you can kind of see what we've done with the answers. That question 4, where we've got that array, is just the numbers instead. So we've just populated in 4, 6, 8, and 10, and that's it. So when those responses come in, as we can see, Fred Flintstone, for instance, his responses were 4, 8, 10. So he missed out the 6, and therefore got it wrong, essentially. Yep. So how about we fill in the form, and we'll test out the flow and see the data come into the system.
Okay.
So I don't need to test my flow from the test menu. I can just submit a new response. So we'll go to preview on my quiz. And it'll load up, and we enter a name. So who will we say? We'll say Barney Rubble. Go with the Flintstones references. Who has the bigger YouTube channel? We're going to say John Levesque. Who has the higher game score? Me. What's 13 times 13? We'll put in a wrong number. We'll just put in 100. Which of these are even numbers? So we'll choose 4, 6, 8, and 10. And what is the capital of England? We'll say New England. So we're going to know that some of these answers are wrong. And hopefully when we mark it, we'll see that. But we'll submit it. We'll get the thanks for the response. And then within a few seconds, that flow should run, and we should see that data go into our Dataverse. So it'll run through, and if we hit refresh on this subgrid, we can see there is a new entry here, and it's ungraded at the moment. So if we open it up, we can see it's not got a score because we haven't run the scores yet, but we see we've got the name, we've got a link to that quiz, so a link to that answer sheet, and we've got all the answers in here, and we can see those formatted numbers in there as well. So that's all great. We've got the data in one place, we've got an answer sheet. Now we need to go through and we need to mark these things automatically. So we'll move on to our second flow. So this is the flow. It's not big and scary, no matter how it looks. I'm going to walk you through some of these things to just make sure you understand what we're doing, and then we'll test this out and you can see the end result. Awesome. So this trigger, this is when a record is selected. This is just a manual trigger flow, which means we can just go into our Dataverse instance, click on run flow, and it's from the drop down there. So it's nice and simple, easy way to do it. We could also automate this a bit more. Say when you get 10 responses in, send the results out, that sort of thing. I've just done this for ease to show you how easy we can do this. Next, we've got list records. So all the list records action does is it's going to go off and it's going to get a list of all of the answers that we are going to then use to mark the answers against the responses. So sorry, we got a list of responses, and we're going to look at the answers as well. So we're going to say quiz responses where the quiz answers equal that quiz answers record. So it's basically just saying, from the record that you're running this from, look at all the responses and bring back all those responses, and we're going to do something with them. So we're going to look at them. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Cool. Next, we're going to initialize a variable. Now, the variable is just going to be used to contain the straw, and this is how we're going to grade things. So we're going to increment it and decrement it based on the straw if we want to. So we just initialize a variable, we give it a name. Mine's called var total straw. It's an integer, so it's a whole number, and we're going to set that default value to 0. So we have that baseline straw. Next, we have a big loop. So this is a loop with a bunch of conditions. Again, not super scary. Don't worry about it. We're going to go through this. So this is going to loop through this list records action. And all it's going to do is it's going to go, okay, look at the question that was asked and look at the answer and compare the two of them. So if the question that was asked is equal to the answer, we're going to increment that straw by 1. So if question equals answer, they get a point. If question doesn't equal an answer, they go down this no path and there's no point. So this is the part in it where if you have a really bad teacher or a really sort of strict teacher, if they want to take marks away when you get an answer wrong, this is where they can add a step in to actually remove marks when they're going through. But that's all we're doing. So we just do that for each one of the records, each one of the questions.
So I want to call out one thing here. Notice that his conditions are independent. They're not subsequent to each other, right? They are removed. So you can see his condition there, and then his if yes and if no. His next condition is not in the if yes or if no path. It is a next step that is separate and independent of that first step. That's an important thing to note, because a lot of times what you're going to do here is stack conditions in the path. This is an instance where you're not going to do that.
Yeah. So this is just so it's all independent, and we just mark one after the other after the other. So that's all we do. We just say if this equals this, and because all the data is essentially just text, it's just string, whether it's a number, whether it's a series of numbers with the commas in between, whether it is text, it's all going to evaluate the same way. So if it's numbers, it's going to evaluate to equal true. If it's text, as long as it's the same text, is going to evaluate to equal true. So that's all good. Yes. So we do that for each one of the questions. That's why we have 5 conditions here, and each question increments the value once. And then all we do is we go and we update the response with that variable. So we say, right, okay, the response that I'm looping through, get the response and then update that total to be what we've got.
Nice.
And then we set the variable back to 0 at the end. And now this is important. An important step is basically during this path, so during this whole loop of questions, we're going to be increasing that variable by 1 each time. And then when we get to the end of this path and we update the record to say this is the straw, we then want to reset it so that the next time this loops around, it's going to start at 0 again. And that's okay. That. Do you understand that? That's like trying to reset back to 0 inside of this loop. And that's where I think some people may have gotten confused when trying to build something like this in the past.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I like that technique, actually. I wouldn't have thought to do it that way, but that's very smart.
Yeah. And then we have a few more steps. So it's great to store these things and store them in the system, but maybe you're a teaching assistant and maybe you need to send this on to someone else, or you maybe need to send this on to a head teacher or something else. So what we're going to do next is we're actually going to go through and we're going to send an email to someone. So all we'll do is we just list those same records again. So the same as that first list record step, we're going to do it again at this point so that we can get those updated responses. So these will now have been stored. They'll have a store on which they didn't have at this point. So we just need to query it again. So we list those records. And then what we do is we create a HTML table. So we create a HTML table from this output, and we're just going to use a custom output, and we're just going to choose the student name and the store and put that in a table. Next, I've very kindly borrowed some code from April Dunham, who works at Microsoft. She has a great blog article that I'll send John the link to about replacing HTML tables and formatting HTML tables in Power Automate. So I found this code from her and I implemented this into my flow as well to make things look a bit nicer.
Nice.
So this is some cool. This is some cool code. Yeah, so this is some cool code to format everything. And then the last step is we just send an email to whoever we want. So we're going to send it to me. We're going to give the score for the quiz. We're going to take the quiz name and we're going to see the outputs. So let's see all this in action. What do you say?
I want to see it. Heck yeah.
So we'll go to my quiz and we can see that we've got one score that is blank here and the rest of them have been stored. I can go up to my flow at the top. I can click on the flows and it'll load up all my flows that I've got in the system. And we've got this one at the bottom, quiz count scores, which is the one we've just been looking at. So we run that.
Let's keep in mind real quick, it says flow at the top of the page now. At some point, it's probably going to change and say Power Automate. So if you don't see a flow button, look for a Power Automate button.
Yeah, that's the one. And once this loads up, it will run through and it'll restore everything. And while that's thinking about that, the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go open my emails as well so we can see what the email looks like.
Cool.
Run the flow. And that's going to go off and that's going to run through everything and give everything a score. So if I hit refresh on this subgrid here, we can see that Barney Rubble now has a score. So he's got 3. So he scored 3 out of 5 on that quiz. Some room for improvement, I think.
Yeah.
If I go back to my Outlook now, so that flow would have sent this email to my Outlook. We'll open it up. And we can see my email stores for the quiz, MCJ Bid Quiz of the Year. And we can open that email. And we should hopefully have a really nice formatted HTML table with all the scores from all the people. And there we go. So we can see all 4 of them are now in there. We got Barney Rubble, we got Fred Flintstone, and everyone else that took the quiz that day.
Amazing. That is so nice. Wow. Man, oh man, oh man. That is so good, MCJ. I love this.
Yeah, so the best part of all this is when you store the data in a system. So if you're storing it in SharePoint, if you're storing it in lists, if you're storing it in Dataverse, it doesn't matter where you're storing it. As long as you have that data, and as long as you can map those things together, what that means is that you can generate reports on how well people are doing, like this. So this is a list of all of the scores that people have gotten. So total scores for all the quizzes. And we can see a stack chart here of who's doing well in what quizzes they took, what their scores were in those quizzes. So this actually gives you a lot of value beyond just using the out-of-the-box forms functionality for quizzes, where you can get a score, but you have to try and go in, you have to download the data, and you have to use it in there. If this is going to put everything in a system for you, At the end of that year, if you want to pull off a report of how well someone's done, if you want to see who the top scorers were, if you want to see what they scored in what quiz, you don't have to go through like a million quizzes and a million form links. You can just come straight into your system and see your reports like this. And again, it'll work in SharePoint lists, it'll work in Dataverse, it'll work in Dataverse for Teams. Doesn't really matter where your data is, as long as it's stored somewhere and we can compare it. You can generate awesome reports as well.
Man, so, I like this because what it does is it takes the work off the teacher from doing grading manually, right? And it takes that work and it puts it up front, and it says, if you're willing to create that answer sheet up front, you can have so much more, right? Your time saving in grading might not be that significant if you compare minutes to minutes, right? Grading it manually or creating a system that does this. But what you gain on the other side, I think, is intelligence like this, where now I don't have to go back and do any historic measuring, right? I can just go look at a dashboard and see Barney Rubble's 10 tests for the year and how he's been scoring, and is he trending up, and then also from there, I imagine having a person as a record, right? A user as a record, I'm able to then look into that individual, see all of their test results, and then I can do a bunch of other things with that. I can send out individual reports, I can have conversations, I can build additional reporting, I can do a whole bunch of things.
Exactly. So like, my sister's a teacher, and you're dealing with maybe 100 kids or maybe 150 kids over the school year. That's a lot of data to try and collate all together inside a system if you're not doing it up front. So, spending that little bit of effort, bit of time and effort up front, getting everything good. And this will work with people that are logged in as well. So if you have like school tenants, they're all under Microsoft. If you have people fill things in, it'll use their user login names and things like that. You can use those as the name records, and it just makes things so much easier. So awesome. It's a time saver.
I love it. Okay, MCJ, I got one more question for you. A lot of my audience is definitely going to come from a SharePoint background. We've worked in Dataverse here today. If someone wants to get started with Dataverse, where do they go? Where's their first step to get plugged into this ecosystem?
I always recommend Microsoft Learn. They have some great courses taking you through Dataverse. If you want to get started with Dataverse and Flow, I'm going to recommend myself, youtube.com/Matt Collins Jones. I have loads of videos on using Dataverse and Flow if you want to connect those two things together. But Microsoft Learn, and the thing is that Dataverse has been around for years. It's a new name, but the core of it has been around for years. There's so much content out there, blogs, videos, everything. So awesome. there should be more information than you need.
So I'm going to ask you then, when you give me the links to things like the GitHub, include a couple links that people could watch to get up to speed on Dataverse. I'd love to include those direct links as well, just so people have some extra reference material.
Will do.
Awesome, man. Okay. This was so good. I know so many teachers that are going to be so excited about this. I know that the Microsoft Educator team is going to be stoked on this too. This is a good one, man. Thank you so much for building this, for figuring this out, and most of all, for coming and sharing it so openly with everybody.
No worries. I love to build. I love to teach. So I just really appreciate the opportunity, John. Thank you.
All right. So you guys know what to do. Get down in the description. There's going to be a lot of goodness down there. And go and get subscribed to MCJ's channel. I would love it if you guys would take a second and go click that button. It only takes a moment out of your day. And to see his number rise will make him thrilled and make me thrilled too. So personal favor to me, go make it happen. Let's what do they call it? Raid. Let's raid his channel and blow it up. I appreciate all of you being here. If you guys have any questions for MCJ, go ahead and leave them in the description. I'll let him know if you have any big ones so he can come and answer specific to this. Otherwise, like I said, go get involved in his material. It's fantastic. That's it from me for today, you guys. Much love. I will see you in the next one.